Lately, there have been a lot of people that are complaining of a new crime. They complaining that they can't sleep, that they're being attacked, that they having their lives being destroyed, and they have a name for this sort of thing. They call it gang stalking, or organized stalking, or electronic harassment. And just got to look at what this thing actually is. It seems to be killing a lot of people. It seems to be on the rise. There seems to be more and more and more people on the net. On YouTube videos are coming out. Everybody seems to be coming out complaining that there's this secretive, magical thing that's somehow just sabotaging their lives. Just a couple of disclaimers. Some of the concepts here are really hard to believe. I mean, there's a lot of technology that's being used, which sort of nobody knows exactly how it works. It seems to be classified. It also seems to be very advanced, very sophisticated, and sort of beyond, almost beyond our time. And but definitely patents of this sort of technology exist. A couple of names for it, such as voice to skull, remote neural monitoring, all those things definitely do exist. So it's not some kind of conspiracy theory, or I think there's a lot of claim to what the victims are actually making. And it's interesting that most of the victims actually have more or less the same stories. More or less of their stories are more or less identical, and it's the same song. So what would be the goal? It's well, I mean, in one word, it's money. Where there's money, where there's crime, where there's an opportunity to sort of commit a crime without getting caught, that would give a criminal an incentive to come out and use the technology to sort of kill somebody. Um, so it is definitely a white collar crime because it cuts through all different sections of society. It's beyond just somebody walking to somebody and shooting them, running off with their car, or some strange hacker going into a bank account and taking off and running off with a whole lot of money. So it's actually white collar crime, and it's actually well organized as well. Um, it seems to drag a lot of people into this because many people can profit, and it does have a high success rate because it's a kind of crime which is very difficult to explain. It's very difficult to sort of, when you don't go through this sort of thing, it sounds unbelievable. It sounds impossible. It sounds like there's no way that you could be going through this sort of thing. There's no way that somebody could kill you or deliberately sabotage your life just to make money. Um, so the intent there is to kill the victim without leaving any kind of evidence. And obviously, if you're gonna do this without using a gun, if you're gonna do this sort of thing without using any kind of, direct weapon, or if you're gonna do this without using any kind of face-to-face method, you're probably gonna have to go about it the long, rounded way, which is systematically to destroy everything that makes a person. That might be his income. If you kill a person's income, obviously, everything falls from there. It's like the whole apple cart just goes falling down. Um, if you don't stop at the person's income and then you actually go after his relationships, you destroy the person's social stature. If you can systematically put somebody under depression, if you can get the person to be crazy, if you can destroy his vital organs such as kidney, lungs, you can destroy his brain. Um, that would be a way over maybe a couple of years killing somebody without leaving some kind of hardcore evidence, because all of these things could be blamed on the victim. If you don't have a job, it could be a victim's fault. If a victim is mentally ill, there are a whole lot of other mental illnesses that are well known, such as schizophrenia. Um, if a victim is involved in some kind of scandal, maybe is labeled a pedophile, or maybe is labeled a drug addict. All those kind of things are sort of common and could easily be blamed on the victim. So if, as a somebody who wants to kill a person for profit, or who wants to take away somebody's life for profit, if you can simulate all of these sort of events, if you can simulate all of these scenarios that seem like they're real life, then you pretty much get away with murder for free. Um, all of this sort of gang stalking, organized stalking, electronic harassment, voice to skull, remote neural monitoring, these are all terms that are being used, and it's all attacks that are done from a distance. So the perpetrator is not actually in direct contact with the victim, and so as a victim trying to explain this sort of thing to somebody else, or trying to come out, or trying to tell somebody about it, you would come across as crazy, you would come across as delusional, you will come across as imagining things that are not there. And again, if you just look back, as if you have got no income, you've got no relationships, and you are constantly under stress 24 hours a day, and if there's somebody who's constantly, deliberately destroying every part of your life, there's a good chance that you'll have zero chance of survival. Simply because the person, the human body, the human system wasn't created for stress. It wasn't created for to live under those kind of circumstances. The other good thing for the perpetrator or the enemy who's carrying out this sort of attack, it's all done from a distance. There's no way that a victim can identify him. There's no way that a victim can come along and take him to court. So as a perpetrator, could even open a business. I could even do this a number of times. I could even rinse and repeat this formula of somehow making a profit, somehow making money, somehow killing people for profit, carried out on 1,000 victims. So organized stalking, gang stalking, electronic harassment, it's not something that a sort of an average Joe criminal is going to do. It's not a quick scheme. It's well organized for one. To carry this sort of thing out usually you need a lot of people. You need a lot of sort of stalkers that are employed 24 hours a day to sort of hack into the guy's computer, to sort of follow the guy everywhere, to simulate, to just constantly put this guy under a lot of stress. This is going to have to happen on a 24-hour basis throughout the rest of his life. And therefore, it's very expensive. Some members of the community are also maybe dragged into this whole spat of destroying this guy, killing him, gagged. There's a word called gagged, so a lie is being told to them, but they've been manipulated into believing that sort of lie. So gang stalking, organized stalking, electronic harassment it's real. It takes a lot of detailed planning. It takes a lot of detailed discipline. It's not a quick murder. It's not like shooting somebody quickly and running off and hoping that never to get caught. The perpetrators really do play dirty. They play in the most ruthless, heartless, in the most inhumane, in the most immoral way possible. There's a range of tricks they're playing. It's not just physical abuse. It's not just physical harm, but they're actually using advanced technology which might have been even used in the military. So it's technology that nobody's ever going to know about. It's technology that, for the time being, it's mostly a secret. It's mostly the rest of society does not know what would have hit them. It's technology which is so advanced, and they don't stop there. They're spreading lies. There's a lot of manipulation. There's a lot of setups. There's a lot of lying to the public. There's a lot of lying to the family. There's a lot of lying to friends, and it's sinking to the lowest level just to kill the person, doing everything ensuring that this person dies, for one, which is the main goal, but dying in a way that it would not seem like a crime was committed. It would not seem like murder. So just in terms of maybe some concrete terminology, people who would be involved in this, people who would be acting in this sort of thing, it would take a large scheme or a large network to carry this sort of thing out. And there would be almost like a local guy who's handling that sort of network, known as a handler. And then you've got the perpetrators. You've got people that are maybe stalking the victim. You've got people that are maybe going around spreading rumors and lies about this victim. You've got people that are constantly maybe again hacking and ensuring that when the victim does try and have a job, apply for a job, that job application is somehow dismantled or manipulated. When the victim is trying to sort of just perpetrators that are carrying out these attacks. Then you've got stalkers that could be anybody, that could be the general public. Typically the general public is maybe told a lie that this is a bad guy, this is a pedophile, you better watch out for this guy, watch him, be careful with this sort of person, or this guy is a drug trafficking, or better watch out for him, keep your distance away from that sort of thing. So those would be the actors. And then on the other side, I think more on the technology side, you've got to really get this person destroyed, to really get this victim destroyed over time, systematically and in a very clever way, in a very smart way. You are going to need to know the victim in and out, and it does take a lot of mapping of this person's data, such as his thinking patterns, such as almost like his likes or dislikes. So almost like knowing everything that there is to know about this person. There is also technology, voice to skull or artificial telepathy. So this is where the perpetrators now constantly aim to psychologically destroy this perpetrator, or destroy on a constant basis, try and drive him mad. There's also a term, remote neural monitoring, which is where effectively now this victim has got no privacy. Everything they do, everything they think, everything that they hear, everything they see is now pretty much exposed to the perpetrator. So we go back to the motive as to why go through all of this trouble. Why go through it? Because where there's money, it's for the same reason that drug lords exist, for the same reason that there's insurance fraud, for the same reason that there is all kinds of criminals. I mean, it's the same story, it's the same pattern, same storyline, that there's maybe a spouse that killed his or her partner for money, that sort of crime. So it's well planned, it's orchestrated. I mean, the first thing would be to find a victim, and then go out to almost like plan an attack in detail, and then start physically attacking the guy over time, over a couple of years. It could be 5 to 10 years, it could be 2 years, it could be a long time. But whilst you're doing that, you're also destroying the guy's public image. You're spreading a lot of rumors about him, so that there's no evidence linking it to the scheme. There's no, it all seems like the victim is the bad person. It all seems like the victim is the bad guy here. And then once the victim dies, or even before he dies, there's profit, depending on what the scheme is trying to achieve, whether it's insurance fraud. In some cases you find that there are people who sign up, who grab victims, sign them up for insurance. That insurance matures over a couple of years, and then it's an offshore kind of insurance, accumulates a lot of money, and then from there, once the victim dies, you can claim insurance. Now imagine doing this, getting away with it, hiding the evidence, doing this over 1,000 victims as the network was a scheme, and how much money you could be. Then there's a very good incentive for you to sort of carry this out. Another reason might be carrying out human experimentation. Yeah. So all of this still sounds unreal. It sounds unbelievable, it sounds unreal, but it does exist, for the fact that there are a lot more victims now coming out. There are victims some have been struggling for a while, for over decades, and in the beginning it was really hard to sort of come out with your story and say, I'm struggling from this gang stalking thing, and to have people believe you say that sort of thing. But now it's really become very easy. It's simply by the fact that it's a growing crime. It's still unbelievable, still very difficult to believe. But the main thing that makes this, the main magical trick here, is imagine if you could insert, or if you could implant some kind of chip in a person that allows you to have control of that person. So when this person is trying to dial or call for help, you already know what phone number he's dialing. When this person is trying to run away or trying to get out of the country, you already know his destination, where he's going to try and go. When this person is trying to apply for a job, you can already see what job application he's making, and once he drops the phone, you can contact wherever he's trying to apply for a job and sabotage his. Basically, if you can just invade a person completely, 100%, and you as the enemy, as a perpetrator, giving you always an unfair advantage, you're always 3 steps ahead, you're always 5 steps ahead. Imagine. So that's the main magic trick that makes this whole thing work. And again, it comes back to remote neural monitoring. That's an actual term for it. You can always Google it online. You can search for it. You can search for it. It does exist. Basically, what it is, it's at this stage nobody really knows. It's classified information. It's classified technology, but it's just having access to somebody else's nervous system, where you can manipulate his body, you can see his senses, you can see everything that he sees, you can hear everything that the person hears. The person is basically now like just a robot right now. It's unbelievable technology. It does exist. It exists currently today. It's mostly secretive. And then the other part, again, it's voice to skull, otherwise known as artificial telepathy. So this is where the perpetrators now are trying to project realistic sounds into your head. So as a victim, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference if the sound coming behind me is a real person, or if it's a projected sound, or because it's almost an illusion. It's an advanced technology that sort of makes you believe stuff. And that is why a lot of these victims, when they do try and explain to whoever, a family, a friend, or a doctor, they do sound delusional. They do sound like they're schizophrenic. They do sound like they are doing this out of paranoia. They do sound like they're doing this out of their own imagination. Meanwhile, it's real. It does exist. So again, the whole goal of all of this, of the scheme, is just to make money. And where there's money, there's going to always be an incentive for somebody to make lots of profit. there's always going to be somebody who's prepared to do anything. We've seen this kind of story in lots of different ways. So this is just a simplified version of how the scheme works and how it's pretty much planned. You find a victim, pretty much do everything in your power to destroy and kill the victim, but hiding evidence and making sure that nobody knows what's going on, and as much as possible blaming all the events of his death on the victim, like maybe trying to make the victim look crazy, or maybe trying to systematically get him into drugs and make him look like a drug addict, or maybe trying to get the victim to commit a crime and then make him look like a criminal. But in a slightly more detailed view, I mean, you find a victim, and one of the first things that the perpetrators are going to do is that they're going to inject that technology inside of the victim, remote neural monitoring, so that they can spy on this guy. They can pretty much start spying on this victim to learn more about this victim, sort of to plan out. This will allow them to plan out the most tailor-made or most specific ways of killing this person. So they're going to know everything about this victim. They're going to know who his friends are. They're going to know where he loves drinking coffee. They're going to know what his favorite TV shows are. They're going to know his favorite music. They're going to know his weaknesses. They're going to know his strong points. They're going to know what aggravates him. They're going to know his secrets. They're going to know if he's got, they're going to pretty much hack into every little bit of thing, almost in a God level, almost like an all-knowing God, like hack into every little thing about this person, just so that they can plan an attack. They can set traps for this person. They can systematically start destroying this person, and then after a while they start attacking this victim, beaming voices into the head, using voice to skull, and this person looks crazy, but meanwhile is not crazy. It takes some victims some time, maybe 3 years, to figure out they're actually not themselves even crazy. Systematically and deliberately get the victim to be depressed and be under stress. So create havoc in the guy's life, create a lot of events that lead to stress, systematically and deliberately destroy the person's victim. I mean, the whole objective here is that the person dies. And also, I mean, imagine if as a victim, if you had bad health, if you had no job, if you had nothing, but you still had loving friends and a loving family and a loving partner, then the chances of you surviving are pretty high. So they make sure that your public image, your relationships are destroyed. You've got no job, you've got no relationships, no church, no religious organization wants you, by going around spreading a lot of lies and rumors. And again, it's all about hiding evidence. It's all about making this a big secret. It's all about making this to come across as though it doesn't exist, as though it's an imagination, as though it's all a mental patient who's gone crazy and was not responsible enough. So most victims actually do die a silent death because non-victims can't understand. They don't know what the person is going through, and the perpetrator walks away scot-free, and has got absolutely no means to fight back. He can't take the perpetrators to court. He can't sue them. He can't do anything with them. He can't do much else with these kind of perpetrators. He can't do much more. And sometimes maybe they even set up the victim. They set them up to be sort of involved in a kind of crime, so that they can be easily, just anything to destroy this guy. Eventually, the victim dies, and this is where the fun begins for the whole purpose of doing this in the first place. So, I mean, reasons for running this sort of campaign on the guy in the first place is might be, again, as I said, insurance fraud, or sometimes some victims believe that it's the military or government that's actually testing out weapons, sophisticated sort of new age weapons on them. Obviously, government is not going to release that secret, because then the enemy will catch on. Then the enemy will sort of know what's going on and counteract. So that's why this whole thing is a bit of a secret. Or sometimes there are illegal medical experiments taking place. We've all heard of stories where vaccines get tested on people, and those vaccines turned out to be sort of unsafe. So if you, as a drug company, as a pharmaceutical, if you could get away with having a lot of test subjects without having to pay for them for one, without having to be accountable for their deaths, without having to be accountable for lawsuits, then it's a win for you. You have this new way, this new understanding, or this new drug that suddenly you didn't pay any research and development monies for. Okay, so once you die, there's usually a claim of insurance, or maybe even in some cases intellectual property is stolen from this victim. Maybe you're a bright engineer and they've got this remote neural monitoring that can read your mind. All your ideas are pretty much stolen. Okay. So the first step in finding a victim, I mean, this can happen to anybody, and this is the point, that the perpetrators don't care whether you're connected, whether you're rich, whether you're good. You don't have to be a criminal. They're gonna try and make you, or try and make the victim look like a bad person, but it's mostly good people that go through this sort of thing. So part of finding the victim again is trying to just, the main thing that makes this whole thing work is as long as the bad guy can see or has invaded the person and has got sort of tracks the person's every move 24 hours a day, doesn't miss a single second. So the first step, and also in finding a victim, they start almost in a way downloading human data into some kind of system, like knowing his likes and dislikes and knowing everything that there is to know. And they actually do study a victim for months. So they don't start attacking immediately. They silently stalk you for a couple of months, even years, until they're absolutely sure that once they start attacking, you're going to fall down. Of course, they're going to start attacking at some point, and it's usually with voices in the head, or voice to skull, which is why there's suddenly now a high number of people that are diagnosed with schizophrenia. And there are some physical symptoms as well. There's a long list of them, like having headaches, always having fatigue. So all of these things look natural, but it's just if you don't have a history of these sort of things, and it all suddenly starts, and then there's a problem. Fatigue, you're having memory problems, you always, maybe appetite is being controlled, or there's just a sense of negativity that's not going away. There's a prolonged sense of bad stuff happening. I mean, the attacks are just simply to overload the victim's senses to a point where the guy can almost crash. So it's the society is dragged into it, and there's also physical pain that's doing a lot of this. So victim stands no chance of surviving. The critical part here is to not just destroy the guy and have him be able to sort of go out and have a social life and be, get his energy back, but they also destroy his public image. So the victim doesn't have an ally, basically. Is isolated, and there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of feeling bad and no outlet, not even a religious outlet, not even a church, nothing will want this guy. There's no job, there's no support system. There's absolutely nothing for this victim, and it's a slow death. It's a slow death, which is very painful. Which is, every minute of, once you become a victim, I mean, every single minute becomes hell, almost, in a way. Slow death where rational thinking is destroyed. You're not getting better with time, and in most cases, I think perpetrators create these instances to maybe even coach the victim to commit suicide. I mean, again, leaving no trace, leaving no evidence behind. If you killed yourself, then it's all your fault. I mean, it's not the perpetrator's fault that you killed yourself. So eventually, the victim does die. Obviously, nobody's not going to know, because most of society isn't clued up as to that this crime actually exists, and the perpetrator walks away scot-free. And they can easily go to the bank and commit a lot of these crimes time and time again. So again, to look at this picture, it's all about just destroying the victim, using voice to skull, which is non-stop voices in the head. So if somebody does complain of hearing voices, it's not necessarily schizophrenia, it's not necessarily a mental illness. It might actually be something else. If they are convinced that they're not crazy, then you should probably take their word for it. There's also remote neural monitoring, which is almost like a GPS and video, and implanted GPS and video inside of you. You can almost think of it as all your senses being taken over. Then there's directed energy weapons, which are pretty much just radiation, literally killing your organs. Then there's gang stalking involved. Gang stalking tries to pollute the victim's relationships, pollute every single one of them. Involve everyone from it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's religious outlets. Basically pollute all relationships as much as possible. And what what basically the perpetrators do to the victim when they're alone, they systematically injecting them with depression, sabotaging their thinking, just killing them in every. I mean, this is overkill, literally. I mean, to use the word in an ironical way, it's literally overkill. That as a person, you're physically destroyed, your finances are destroyed, your friendships are killed emotionally. You have got no chance. There's no day of rest. The only option that will be left over is usually suicide. Okay. So again, gang stalking or organized stalking is a very sad story. Electronic harassment. It's a very, very sad story. It's it's a crime. I mean, above everything else, it's killing a human being. It's destroying a human being. It's destroying a person. And the saddest thing is that the person is left no means to fight back. There's no means. There's no day of peace. There's no means for the victims to get justice. And there are a lot of them coming out every year. There are a lot of people beginning to speak out and say, but I'm hearing voices, and I know it's not just voices, but there's a whole lot of other strange events happening in my life, and only to be labeled insane. That's the sad part. And what's even more sad is that pretty much the whole of society is in denial that this thing exists. And it's actually been around since. A lot of these things have been around since over 50 years now, since the 1960s, and it's actually now a money-making scheme for the perpetrators. I mean, if I can just destroy a person without getting caught, or destroy a person without my life, being absolutely sure that I'll always have a job, then there's a lot of incentive for me. And the other thing that's happening lately is that a lot of young people are getting recruited to sort of take part in this sort of thing, because it's technology based. It's very app based. It's very stock based. It's very social media based. It's something that will immediately make sense to a lot of the young people, but they're not actually. We're losing that sensitivity, that idea that you're actually destroying a person's life, because it seems so cool, and it doesn't look like you're killing a person, but because it carries on for a long time. Religious organizations are also, taking part, or because of the lies, they're being manipulated, or they're being told the wrong story, or for whatever reason. So, gang stalking does exist. The term might be a little bit misleading. Organized stalking exists. So whenever somebody comes to you and say, I'm hearing these voices, I'm hearing these sort of things, just think of this picture, have this sort of picture in your mind, that it's a systematic way to make money. It's a systematic way of maybe making, it might be an insurance scheme or whatever it is, but this is exactly what gang organized electronic harassment is about. It's killing a person in the most painful way possible.